Ever since we started grade school, we've all been told that we need a big, strong government to look after us. And that, sure, it may need fixing here and there, but generally today's government size is about right. We disagree. We think that government is a parasite, living off what you and I earn and using our money to do unpleasant things to us. From being a nation of self-reliant go-getters, America is fast becoming a country of government junkies. We think an alternative exists, one that puts you back in charge of your own life and destiny. We call it the Freedom Alternative.
Good evening, I'm Jim Davies.
And I'm Peter Verderosa.
And welcome to another edition of the Freedom Alternative. While plenty of people call on politicians to reduce taxes, most of them seem to want them to maintain government services at the same time. We're the only show on television that asks politicians not only to slash taxes, but also to take all their so-called services and stuff them, for they all do more harm than good. We ended our show last week with the news that a New Hampshire state legislator, Mr. Colin Warburton, had announced his resignation in disgust from the tax-raising Republican Party there and had joined the Libertarians so that nobody could doubt that he was opposed to taxes. We gave out our phone number, 1-257-4844, in case there's any legislator in Hartford who is honest enough to do the same. We're recording this program before that one has been shown in more than a couple of cable areas, but so far nobody has called. Take note. So far, there's no evidence of a single honest politician in Hartford. Not one. Meanwhile, there is news of another New England defector, Dr. Paul Fichtner of Maine, a respected Republican of 40 years, has likewise quit in disgust and joined us, as reported in the latest edition of the Libertarian Party News. Dr. Fichtner likes the strong principles of freedom lovers. He said he joined the Libertarian Party because he felt that here are people who think differently and have some principles, and who are willing to stick to them. I don't believe everything that the LP has in its planks, but I never believed everything the Republican Party had in its planks. I pick out those things I'm comfortable with. One thing I do like about the Libertarians is that they are saying that you are a master of your own destiny. Amen to that. Once again, if there's any Republican or Democrat politician in this state who is ready to leave those older parties and work for real freedom, we're waiting. The number is 1-257-4844.
Well, Jim, I suggest that you don't hold your breath.
Well, you never know. Look, we've had one in each of those two New England states in the last few weeks. Why not?
Two honest politicians.
Yeah.
Out of how many?
In New England, oh, I don't know, many hundreds. But you never know. I mean, these folk are born with a conscience. They might have one.
Well, let's hope. There's hope. Okay, folks, I'm Peter Verderosa, as you may well know, and last week we had Walter Gengarelly as our guest, very able-bodied, to discuss the major subject of the family and how government regulations destroy family values. It's an enormous subject, and I'm not sure that in such a short time, even two programs, two half-hour back-to-back Freedom Alternative programs, that the subject could be truly discussed in depth. So today, we're going to go over a few of the aspects of how government does destroy the family and family values, or interfere with them at least to a great degree. And I thought that maybe you and I could kick that around a bit today. What do you think,
Just one
James?
or two aspects that might need covering a little more fully.
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
First off, one of the things that came to my mind this past week is that same thing that we've addressed here before, whereas whenever you turn on the tube, and we all agree that the television, is a fantastic medium, and it's in everybody's life worldwide now. But when you look at newscasters especially, they're directed by the news producer, the news director, and I think they're trying to be objective in their presentation of the news, but It's the things they omit
Yeah.
that are, in effect, propaganda.
Yeah. You see, they're very, very biased against individual freedom. You don't notice that until you realize what it is they're omitting, as you say. And for instance, none of the things that we said in the last couple of weeks have, to my knowledge, been on network television. It has never been pointed out that a family's wealth is being destroyed, systematically destroyed over a long period of time by death taxes.
That's
it's
right.
impossible, almost impossible, to become wealthy. It isn't ever pointed out that a family's right to bring up children as they please is being destroyed by the government school monopoly. These are things we bring out rather easily. You've never seen that on network television. That's because they're biased, very strongly biased against the individual. We're, of course, equally biased in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
But we don't hide it. They do. And I think that's important to point out.
I'm very glad that we are.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here if we weren't. We say it openly.
Once listened for the umpteenth millionth time.
That many.
On that many, on a flagship station in New York City. The newsman came on, and I was so dismayed to hear it again. He said, "Well, the report is in for the last quarter, and it seems that inflation rose 0.8%." And economists say this is attributable to rising petroleum costs and the increased cost of hard goods. Well, I immediately picked up the phone and called that station. And I said, I want to speak to the news director. and they put me through. They did. And I said, listen, when are you people going to get it straight? Don't you understand you're feeding the people lies with this fantastic medium called television? You're constantly telling them that inflation is rising prices. You know that. You should know that's nonsense. After all, you are college people.
But a lot of people think that, Peter.
But a lot of people
inflation
think
is
that.
rising prices.
But where
not
do they
true.
get this information? From this constant bombardment from this TV and the radio and even the written word, the ink.
So tell them, what is inflation?
Inflation, as we've shown here before and has been shown on many programs, even children's programs, where it's shown in very elementary fashion with little trucks and a stack of poker chips. It is nothing more than the release of new currency
Too much money.
into the economy through
is
the
correct.
Federal Reserve System.
Yeah. So the government pumps more money into the economy. It almost literally prints the stuff. It's a kind of shell game exactly how it works, but effectively they're printing the stuff. And what do you know? Prices go up.
Exactly.
Of course they go up. What else could happen?
I mentioned that because I thought it was a very good example.
It's a good example
of propaganda.
And it is so completely reversing the true cause of that particular subject, inflation. It's rather like, as we were saying before, the allegation that a heavy rainstorm causes clouds to appear. It's precisely the opposite of what the true state is.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Exactly.
you were going to say that we should cover some more aspects of family life.
That's right.
Inflation, of course, damages family life, but it's only one thing.
Now, one thing that I think we must do as a follow-up to our 2 episodes on the family and family values is take a little bit better look at the idea of, in other words, we could have given the impression to the viewers that we condone things that to some groups are very strange, to other groups are not so strange. Well, we really should clarify, I'd like to clarify that, for example, in some of my comments, I remember saying that we think women are allowing themselves to be pawns, government pawns, that is, that they're controlled by government in their feminism, in their walking up and down with placards in support of equal rights amendment.
Well, they've been taken advantage of by government.
Yes.
See, it's very interesting to look back over a quarter of a century because the women's movement, I think, in the 60s, particularly in the 70s, was saying, hey, we don't like being subservient to our husbands. We want to be free to develop a career like a man can, and quite right too. Now, and that battle has been very largely won, I would say. The problem is government's taken it over. They're now enslaved, not to the government, but not to the husband, but to the government.
Well, and there are...
And this is a well-made point.
And there are many men involved in pushing the ERA legislation, getting behind it. Even a famous actor that everybody looks up to, Alan Alda, was out there pushing ERA. And many women are fired up about it. But I really feel it necessary to say personally that I am certainly not sexist in no way. I do believe that men have kept women down over a period of many years.
Century.
And it's still going on. It's still going on. That when women say, you sexist pig, right, it's well applied, because there are many men, and the guys aren't going to like what I'm saying now, right? But
are those pink elephants on your tie there, Peter? You're not a male chauvinist.
but in
Not
fact,
pink elephants, pink pigs.
that's my personal opinion. But where is the freedom, the
Yeah.
total freedom in the society for a woman to take any job that she wishes as a career and not be harassed by a man in the workplace, but the government has no right to intervene on that?
They're just taxing her earnings.
In other words, if that's happening to her, what her first thought would be, as Billy Michael pointed out in Fighting Taxes, her first thought would be, let me go to a legislator and see what I can do about this.
Yeah, right.
Right? When really what she should do is, number one, don't put the pot on the back burner, but deal with that sexist pig right on the spot.
Yeah.
And go over his head if possible. Put him on the carpet until his face turns red, purple, whatever, and at least accuse him. If it's true, the truth wins out. And then, beyond that, if you can't get satisfaction, you're still free to take a job elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's that's part of the freedom alternative ideal.
Tell me, Peter, you and Walter got onto one other subject last week. It's a hot subject, that of abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, of course, you two were chatting, and I was watching this, as our viewers were, and I was fascinated to see that, unlike myself, it was clear that you and Walter both had a very high respect for the, what shall I call it, the sanctity of the life of the fetus.
Yes, as a
at
matter
a very
of fact,
early stage in
as a
its
matter of fact,
development.
Walter, with all due respect, he was a little bit vague about it as a Roman Catholic, and I did encourage him, if you remember, to get into the religious aspects.
Sure.
I don't want to be vague. I don't want to say read my lips, as the phrase that the President used and that you used in the last episode. I want to make it very clear where I stand about it.
Go ahead.
I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as the centerpiece of my religious views and my spirituality.
All right.
I believe that whether you think he was a prophet or whether you think he was the Son of the living God, that's your prerogative. I believe he was the Messiah. Okay? And I think that if you walk in the path of Jesus Christ, you're walking in a path that can only bring you, as some people like to say, what goes around comes around, can only bring you good.
All right.
That's what I believe.
How do you relate this
Now,
to
how
that
I relate
particular
this
subject?
is that indeed it has been interpreted. It does not say, and you know the Scriptures better than I.
No.
And I respect you for it.
I would doubt it.
But it has been implied by biblical scholars and theologians, clergy, that in fact a soul is part of a new entity at the point of conception.
Oh, anybody is free to believe that.
Anybody
Sure,
is
yeah.
free to
Yeah.
believe that.
And you would hold
And
it
I
right?
believe that.
I think Walter does too.
It took me a little time to believe that. There were, years back, I did a lot of reading on the subject, and then finally I pieced it together, and today that's my stand.
This is fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, what really impressed me, though, I would happen to disagree with you there. I don't think I would have any particular respect for a bunch of cells developing over the first few weeks of pregnancy.
So you're a scientist in this regard.
Any more than I'd have any respect for a spider. It's that they're comparable as far as I'm
Okay,
concerned.
fine.
However, I respect your view. What really impressed me was that you two, as evidently somewhat pro-life, were both saying on this program, no law against abortion, no government interference.
Absolutely.
There, you and I 100% agree.
100% in agreement.
And this was fascinating. It really was, because this is a viewpoint, folks, that you don't see, I think, in any other part of the opinion spectrum in this country. Somebody who is, on the one hand, pro-life, and yet on the other hand, against having any kind of law that prohibits abortion. Similarly, there is a difference, I think, from where I come from. You could describe me more or less as pro-choice, but I am absolutely opposed, as you are, to the idea of tax money going to fund abortions, or for that matter, going to fund anything else, because all tax money is theft. And it's immoral from that point onwards, no matter what. Use it
Absolutely.
point.
And
so we've got a couple of quite unorthodox views here, haven't we? I love it.
At this point, we should bring out to the viewers that when you see two groups of people protesting about abortion, and on one side of the street you've got people behind police barricades with their placards saying pro-choice, pro-choice, and on the other side of the street you've got the other people hissing at them, most of them Christians, much of the time Christians, or people with Christian Judeo values, and they've got their placards saying pro-life, pro-life. Don't stop killing, stop the killing.
Yeah.
And they're hissing and snarling at each other,
Yeah.
right? They do not realize it, but they've just caused every media, radio and TV, to come out of the woodwork
Yeah.
and promote the government propaganda.
Exactly right. All it strengthens is the government.
And they're doing exactly what Billy Michael said.
Yeah.
They're strengthening the government because they're trying, without realizing it, they completely forget about the individual,
Yeah.
and they try to push a collective
Yep.
view.
Yep, exactly right. They're
Through-
trying to impose their view upon one another.
And it
We're
will
not.
be done through democracy.
I'm
will
afraid it
be-
might.
I'm afraid it
I'm
might.
afraid it could be.
Through democracy,
Now,
it will be done.
Peter, let me ask you a tough question. This is not rehearsed, folks. As you may be able to realize, this is a tough
You
question.
see the enthusiasm here?
You got the view that there is something sacred about the life of a fetus from day one onwards.
Absolutely.
You agree with me that there should be no law forbidding the termination of that. by the
That's
mother.
right. And I
How-
might add
how-
at this point, before you go on, hold the
All right.
thought, okay? I have seen, and this is part of what brought me to my conclusion,
Okay.
okay? I have seen too many women haunted for the rest of their days
I understand.
after they've gone through this horrible trauma.
I understand.
And
that's an
some of them,
argument.
yes, some of them can do it well, can get through it well.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I have also seen this. Upon visiting the home of someone who showed me a sonogram of the fetus moving in the womb, they have that device that enables them to do that now. She told me that her OBGYN doctor had told all of the people at the Lamaze class, he said, before we begin, I want to hear from you. He said, because if anyone here is going to ask me to terminate because of gender, that is, you know, and oftentimes it's because the husband wants a little boy, and it just so happens that the sonogram proves conclusively that it's a little girl that
All
is
right.
going to be born,
All right.
that on that basis they terminate the pregnancy. It's immoral. I feel personally it's immoral.
Well,
but I also feel
yeah.
the government has no place in that decision,
Right.
and that doctor was great to inform them.
Okay.
They can leave that room and find
Go somewhere
a doctor who will do it.
Understood,
But
agreed.
they will live with the
Oh,
consequences.
they'll do that anyway. But my question to you is, if you're not going to have a law, some of our viewers must be wondering about this question, you're not going to have a law forbidding abortion, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Yes, you don't want, you
You're
personally
going
do
to
not want
leave
to
it
see.
to the family.
Yes, I know. But how are you going to, from your point of view, you would want to limit abortions or even stop them. How are you going to do that without law?
Oh, only by talking, by educating, by persuading. It's sort of a one-on-one ministry.
A persuasion.
I mean, I'm free to go outside right now, and they might think I'm some sort of a nut.
No.
But I could walk up to someone on the street who perhaps I've heard is considering it or is in a dilemma, let's say, with child, and I could try to persuade her.
Yes.
I could try to persuade the father.
Yep.
Don't go through with this.
What a vast difference there is now between what you've just said on the one hand
Isn't it?
and what most pro-lifers, I'm afraid, would normally say.
That's right.
You have hit the nail right on the head, and you've said, well, you would try to persuade the mother-to-be, the parents-to-be, to take the action you would recommend. That's fine. There is nothing wrong with attempted persuasion. The big stick of government, however, is to be kept out of the picture.
Absolutely.
And that's the key to
And
it.
the abortion issue, because it deals with infants, helpless infants, right? It is so volatile that the politician can use it like an 88-millimeter shell. I mean, it is
Oh,
potent.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is power, the most
great-
powerful stuff you
A
can
great
have.
way to get him votes, and what do they do with
tremendous
what they do with the
ammunition,
office. Yeah.
tremendous
Yeah.
ammunition.
You've got something else you want to pick out from this?
Let's see. Some of the other things that we talked about. For example, there was reference made as to how many to marry.
Oh, yes.
How many to marry.
I'd forgotten that was made last week.
And in fact, there are cases.
What do you mean, how many, Peter? You've had one wife and one husband, sure.
Well, for those who aren't aware of the words, okay, I'll reach into my extensive vocabulary and talk about polygamy versus monogamy.
Really?
Now, for those who aren't aware, monogamy means loyalty and commitment to one partner, whereas polygamy means many partners. Now, I have seldom heard of a case where There's one woman with many husbands.
Curious thing, I haven't either. Right.
But I have, and I guess that's the chauvinism part of it.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
But I have heard of many cases where there's one man
Sure.
with many, many wives.
Sure.
And it's usually in the Middle East you find that. You find that very much today with the Arabs. You find that with the Mormons,
yes.
I believe, right? I heard of
two
one
otherwise disparate groups, I would say.
Right, and as a matter of fact, there is a case on record. Remember, it was about maybe 10 to a dozen years ago, where a Mormon who had 11 wives,
Yep.
his property was raided by government officials because in that particular area where he lived, it was illegal. Polygamy was illegal.
How about that?
So they infringed on his rights in terms of his religion.
Yep.
And told him, this is a no-no, and we're pulling everybody out of here. And of course, a story was created about it for television, which, I'll tell you, it was heart-wrenching. It did depict the women as downtrodden and very traumatized.
I've heard of women in monogamous marriages who would also make that claim. So I think the point here is that so long as it is a voluntary association, right?
Exactly.
Then we have no comment on this program about how many people marry how many people.
Precisely.
Or for that matter, what genders get married.
Right. My personal view is one is enough for me. It's too much to handle as it is.
All right.
You know what I mean? So I'm quite
Not
happy
sure what
with
your
that.
wife will think about that one.
Oh, she's a stick of dynamite, I want to tell you. So I am quite happy at that, and I have no desire to involve myself with polygamous endeavors.
But if others do?
But if others do, they can live next door to me, and fine with me.
You see, this is the key, folks.
Wouldn't it be fun to see all those ladies working in the yard together?
It would be interesting. Now, this is the key, folks, because I think a lot of people want to be left alone by authority. We love freedom. This is a very common...
It's the nature of man.
It's the nature of man. But not everybody, unfortunately, grasps the equal and opposite point that places an obligation, it's about the only obligation it does place on us, to be equally tolerant, of equal but different behavior by other people. This is the principle of a true belief in freedom. Not only that we want it for ourselves, but that we're willing to let everybody else be free as well.
Exactly.
Even though, and in fact, especially when, they disagree with our personal choices in this as in any other matter. Mm-hmm. That's the key to freedom. It's the one thing you can't have without giving it away as well. Key factor, key thought.
Now, I'll tell you what, I, at this point, would like to go into something, if I may, that kind of ties religion in with the political scene. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I heard on the 4th of July as we listened to a radio show. And some of the people, as I develop my thought here, are going to realize what radio show this is because it is very, very popular among Christian folk.
All right.
I heard a Christian radio talk show host on the 4th of July because the subject that he chose for his July 4th program was patriotism. Mm-hmm. And he clearly said that his stand was that because America was founded by fine Christian people on Christian values, right, that he said that the American flag was synonymous with that, and to that extent, he was absolutely in favor of revision of the first article of the Constitution to prohibit flag burning.
Oh my goodness.
I went crazy. And my wife said, well, call the station. I said, I won't do it. Let's listen, just let's listen, and let's hear what some Christian brethren have to say about this. Because I think they're going to chastise this man. Mm-hmm. Usually they lift him up and tell him how wonderful he is. But this time, he got a couple of calls, and the people said basically this. They said, so-and-so, I won't mention his name, okay, but a lot of you know who he is.
Go on.
They said, so-and-so, as a good Christian, and I consider myself such, I try, I do my best, but the number one symbol to me is the cross. That represents the breaking of the flesh, spirituality, my spirituality. And how dare you put the American flag up there with my cross, with the cross of my God? Mm-hmm. They said, if someone wants to be foolish enough to go out there and burn it in public, let him be free to do so.
Yeah, and stand all the scorn that may be poured on him.
You so-and-so have missed the point.
Of course they
Don't you dare
Yeah.
tell the people that there should be a change in the fine, beautiful, wonderful Constitution of the United States.
You bet.
And with that, somebody mentioned, somebody else got into, another caller got into the meaning of Jesus' turning over the tables in the temple.
Oh, yeah?
And he said that indicates that Jesus said capitalism was bad.
Oh, they think that?
And at least the talk show host, with the wisdom that he does have, and he is a learned man, he explained to the caller that the caller was all wet on that point,
Yeah.
and that it was really a matter of them doing business on holy ground.
Yeah, right.
And then you have callers...
But did he take that earlier point that the caller in criticized
he
him?
he stuck right to his guns
Really?
and said he still supports...
Because he's dead wrong.
He's dead wrong.
He's dead wrong on a number of counts.
He's dead
First of all, this nation was not founded as a Christian nation. If you actually read the wording of the First Amendment, it specifically says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
Right.
And when it says no law, it means no law.
The separation...
It is not Christian, it is not anti-Christian, it is not Buddhist, it is not Aletherian, it is not nothing.
The separation of church and
a
state...
nation where religion is free, period.
Right.
That's
and
it.
the separation of church and state is so important. It
Well, the
is so
separation
important.
of state from church is important. I don't see anything. I don't see that phrase in the Constitution. I don't see anything that forbids churches to comment on state matters. Do you?
Right. That's right. But I would like, in my view, I would like clergy, and we pointed it out as a matter of fact.
Yes, we did.
We actually blamed clergy for the fact that there are ridiculous requirements on marriage or a license to marry.
But you have to get a state license to marry, and none of the clergy object to this.
Just
this
as
is wrong.
as I believe that clergy doesn't speak out enough on other matters.
Oh, sure.
That have to do with the oppression, suppression by the government body.
Yeah. Another example of media bias here, Peter. You very often hear on the media, major media, this phrase, separation of church and state. The phrase is totally unconstitutional. It does not occur from one end to the other, not once. All it does is to say, government hands off religion. Congress shall make no law respecting religion.
Yeah.
That's all it says on the subject. It doesn't say that clergy can't comment on what the government's doing. On the contrary, they're free to do anything they like with regard to what the government's doing.
And as Gene Burns pointed out in one of our previous episodes in his speech at the '90 convention, he said that creator in the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson and regarded as one of the finest documents ever written in the world, okay, could be interpreted as the living God, if you are a Christian or you have Judeo-Christian values, whatever, or it could be interpreted as Mother Nature.
Yes.
And on that note, it's time for us to go.
It isn't.
I'm Peter
Really?
Verderosa.
I'm Jim Davies.
Have a wonderful week and join us next time when, once again, we'll give you a great choice. It's a different one, very avant-garde. It's called The Freedom Alternative. Good night.
Good night.